I first saw it, I thought that this was a US-made, very advanced next-generation fighter, and in fact that this would explain all the UFO sightings. It was only later to find out that that wasn't the case. We're looking at something, scarcely bigger than a basketball that's doing this.
What if a mysterious metallic sphere, something many people dismissed as just another UFO rumor, was actually real, and someone just confirmed it? For years, stories about the so-called Buga Sphere have floated around, but most people never took them seriously. That changed when Bob Lazar spoke out, backing claims that something unusual might actually exist. And just when it couldn't get any more surprising, new findings started to emerge, details that are leaving even skeptics questioning what's really going on. This isn't just another conspiracy story. It's a mystery that's getting harder to ignore. If you enjoy mind-blowing mysteries like this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The fall over Buga, a sphere not meant for Earth. The fall over Buga began on a quiet night when a sharp streak of light cut across the sky. Farmers later said it looked like a burning star moving too fast to belong there. A few seconds after the streak vanished, a deep thud rolled across the fields. It was not loud in the usual way. It felt more like pressure moving through the ground, enough to make windows vibrate and animals shift nervously in their pens. By morning, villagers walked toward the area where the sound had come from. They found a round metal sphere sitting in a shallow dent in the soil about the size of a medicine ball. The ground was freshly broken around it, but the sphere itself looked untouched. There were no dents, cracks, or burn marks. The surface felt cold, even while the sun rose higher. People who touched it said the temperature made no sense, as if the object ignored the heat around it. Word spread quickly, and curious locals gathered until officials arrived to block the area. Before they could stop anyone, several videos had already been posted online, showing the strange metal surface glowing slightly in the morning light. Some viewers claimed it looked too smooth, almost like liquid frozen in a perfect shape. Scientists soon reached the site with tools that were supposed to cut through almost anything. They placed drills against the surface, but the bits sparked and skidded off without leaving a mark. Diamond cutters did no better. One metallurgist said the sphere behaved like a material beyond anything in their catalogues. Under portable microscopes, they found no seams, welds, or grain lines. It did not look manufactured in any known way. One expert said it felt like something grown, not built, although he could not explain what that meant. Something else caught the attention of the team. The sphere bent light in a strange way. Sunlight seemed to curve along its surface instead of bouncing off it with a normal shine, creating a faint shifting halo that changed shape whenever someone moved nearby. Even more unsettling was what happened when they placed a small generator close to it. The sphere gave off a low, steady hum, almost like a quiet vibration inside the metal. Every time they adjusted the distance or the type of electrical source, the hum changed slightly. Officials tried to keep the site secure, but the leaked videos had already attracted global interest. People online argued over whether the sphere was a weapon, a meteor, or something from outside Earth. Nothing in the first measurements or tests offered a familiar answer. The sphere refused to act like any known object. It felt engineered, but not with any technique used by humans. It created a sense of quiet warning, as if the object was waiting for someone to understand it. Everything changed when researchers discovered strange markings carved around its middle, symbols of intent, glyphs, layers, and a living blueprint. Before Bob Lazar came on board, the sphere was taken to a secure laboratory in Cali, placed under tight control with only a selected group of specialists allowed inside. The team was led by physicist José Luis Velázquez, a man known for his sharp instincts and deep experience with unusual materials. Yet even he admitted that the Buga Sphere was unlike anything he had studied. He described it as something that felt intentional, shaped with a purpose that no familiar science could explain. The first major discovery came when the team examined the sphere's midline with enhanced imaging tools. A single ring of 24 repeating symbols wrapped perfectly around the equator, separated by 6 thin divider marks between each one. No strokes were out of place, and the precision looked absolute. When Velázquez compared the markings with global language databases, the system produced nothing. There were no matches to any alphabet, ancient or modern. The glyphs did not behave like letters or numbers. They repeated in a sequence, yet the structure suggested something more controlled than simple decoration. The team then used X-ray systems, neutron scanners, and magnetic field mapping tools. What appeared inside the sphere challenged every assumption. Instead of gears, coils, or solid metal, the scans revealed folded layers that looked similar to biological tissues, overlapping and compressing like organic structures. Velázquez said it reminded him of muscle fibers packed into a perfect spherical shape. These layers were dense but not rigid, absorbing scanning waves in a pattern that felt more alive than mechanical. At the center was the most puzzling feature: a branching network of copper-like strands spread outward from a central dark node resembling neural pathways. They curved, split, and converged in patterns that looked too natural to be manufactured. The central node absorbed nearly all scanning signals, leaving its composition unknown. The geometry of the branching network matched harmonic ratios seen in living cells and magnetic field behavior, opening a new line of thought that unsettled many researchers. Artificial intelligence models were brought in to study the surface symbols. After running pattern recognition tests, the AI produced a result none of the researchers expected. The sequence of the 24 glyphs matched the electrical charge layout of a specific 24 amino acid neuropeptide, a molecule that carries signals between cells. The match was extremely precise, making it difficult to dismiss as coincidence. This bothered Velázquez because it suggested something unsettling. If the glyphs followed the same structure as a biological signaling molecule, they were not meant to be read like a sentence. They behaved more like instructions that a living system would follow to carry out an action. In living organisms, molecules with similar patterns control very specific processes, triggering growth, movement, memory formation, and chemical changes. The most reasonable interpretation was that the symbols were telling the sphere what to do. This led the team to a direct conclusion. The markings might be part of the sphere's internal operating system, not presenting information for someone to interpret, but using the symbols to regulate itself. The same way a biological system uses molecular sequences to control its own behavior. The question was no longer about what the symbols meant. The question became whether the sphere was performing an active process, carrying out a task. That question reached a peak when Bob Lazar entered the investigation. Enter Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar entered the investigation at a moment when the research team felt they had reached a wall. His name came up after one of the researchers noticed something familiar in the sphere's electromagnetic readings, reminding him of a document written years earlier by Lazar about field systems that did not rely on normal propulsion or mechanical engines. Once word reached Lazar, he requested access to the scans and preliminary reports, approved quietly, partly because the team had no one else with his unusual background. Lazar became widely known in the late 1980s after claiming he had worked at a classified facility studying gravity-based propulsion systems from recovered craft. Many scientists dismissed his story. Others felt he described principles too specific to ignore. His experience with materials that did not behave like anything on Earth, metals that could alter fields, reactors with unknown fuel sources, and control systems built around patterns all matched the early findings from the sphere. When Lazar first saw the reports from Columbia, he reacted with surprising calm. He read the notes slowly, studied the images of the 24 glyphs and the divider marks, and paused on the scans showing the copper network and the dark central node. He said the object did not look like a weapon or a vehicle. It reminded him of something that shaped fields in a controlled way. He suggested calling it a field modulator, explaining that some systems he had seen worked by reading patterns on their own surface, with markings acting like operational commands. Each glyph might be part of a sequence the device used to manage its inner processes. Lazar then focused on the branching network, saying it looked similar to the way nerves carry signals in a brain, meaning the sphere was built to sense and shape electromagnetic activity. He also warned them about the dark center, suggesting it might process incoming signals and that the wrong type of signal could cause the sphere to change state unpredictably. At the end of his first review, he said the sphere did not look like something meant to move or store power. In his view, it was built to think. Bob Lazar cracks the Buga Sphere's code. Lazar studied the sphere for weeks before noticing something important. Every branch of the copper lines lined up with one of the symbols on the outside. He then tested how the inside reacted when he changed the strength of the electromagnetic field around it. Each adjustment caused the copper network to react, with a small change on the outside creating a ripple inside that matched a specific symbol. That was the moment he knew the symbols were not random. He used scanners to watch how the inside changed whenever he sent different frequencies into it. Every time, a different path lit up inside the network, always connecting to a matching symbol, as if the sphere was reading the symbol and responding to it. By repeating this, he discovered 24 clear response patterns, each matching one of the 24 symbols. Then, he noticed the 6 divider marks acting like reset points. Whenever the energy reached a divider mark, the entire system started over. The sphere followed a full cycle of steps, reset at each divider, then started the program again. Lazar built a small test model out of copper wire and a thin metal shell. It did not float or power itself, but it copied the same reaction pattern, proving the sphere was running a programmed sequence written on its surface. Instead of computer chips or memory cards, the instructions were built directly into its shape, spacing, and response to certain frequencies. He called it a geometric operating script. The symbols were the commands. The copper network acted like the processor. The frequencies acted like the triggers. Everything worked together in a simple but extremely advanced system. The sphere had no wires, no plugs, no switches, and no normal machine parts, yet it could run a full program with perfect timing. Its design and its function were the same thing. What Lazar found. The patterns Lazar mapped began to look less like machine instructions and more like the behavior of something that could sense and respond. The frequencies inside the sphere shifted in ways that reminded him of how neurons fire when thoughts form. Every glyph sequence triggered a field pattern that behaved almost like a living response. The sphere might not be a tool or a propulsion core, it might be something designed to interact with life itself. He studied the central node again and noticed its behavior changed whenever researchers moved their hand closer to the sphere. The node reacted to bioelectric fields, its flickering pulses rising in rhythm with the faint electrical signals the human body gives off, similar to how certain parts of the brain respond to emotional states. It felt like the sphere recognized the presence of a living being. He mapped frequency loops the sphere generated on its own and found they aligned with neural pathways in the human hippocampus, tied to memory formation and emotional association. The sphere was generating similar patterns without being connected to any living brain, suggesting it was built to read or create those patterns. A non-intrusive scanner revealed flexible structures inside that shifted like adaptive tissue, not organic, yet behaving like something waiting to activate. Lazar also realized the sphere had sent stable resonance bursts into the room, organized and repeated in clear patterns, which he believed were forms of communication built on frequency and geometry rather than speech. After weeks of study, he reached a firm conclusion. The sphere was a biosynthesis machine designed to behave like a living system. It could sense changes around it and adjust its internal activity. The patterns on its surface were instructions for a type of artificial mind built into the sphere. He warned the team that running the full sequence of symbols might activate the sphere in an unpredictable way. The warning came too late. The awakening sequence. Lazar ran a full digital simulation of the sphere's behavior on his model, feeding it different frequency patterns based on the glyphs and divider marks. Most tests produced quiet shifts. Then one pattern changed everything. A very exact combination caused the copper network inside the model to pulse in a steady rhythm that looked almost alive, lining up with patterns that appear in human brains when memories are formed. The simulation also showed emotional signatures mixed into the pulsing rhythm. First came a burst matching fear responses. Then the pattern softened into calm. After that, it rose into something close to euphoria. The sequence looked organized, like a system reacting to its own inner state. Lazar concluded that the sphere had recognized the pattern they triggered, reacting as if the sequence matched an internal blueprint. It felt like the machine had seen its own reflection in the signal and responded. Hours later, a real signal appeared at the monitoring stations, not from the simulation, but from the actual sphere in the lab. Workers reported a repeating cycle of 24 pulses, followed by 6 moments of complete silence, perfectly consistent. This structure was identical to the counting system built into the glyph ring and matched control loops found in biological neural networks. It was the first clear sign that the sphere was no longer passive. The research team buried sensors around the original impact site and began receiving faint underground readings, forming branching patterns that resembled a growing network, as if something beneath the soil was slowly connecting with the environment, despite the sphere being far away. At the same time, people in nearby villages reported strange radio interference that, when recorded and analyzed, matched the same 24 pulse pattern, followed by 6 pauses. The pattern had spread far beyond the sphere itself. Lazar gave one final statement before withdrawing from the project, saying he could no longer discuss it. What the cracked code suggests. Scientists began to warn that the activation sequence may have awakened more than the sphere itself. New layers of static appeared on top of the signal, behaving like fresh sequences forming inside the system, almost as if the sphere was learning to respond to the environment. The pulse moved outward from the original lab at a slow but steady pace, reaching monitoring stations in other research centers without losing structure, keeping the same 24 pulses, the same 6 pauses, and the same emotional undercurrent. When the team reviewed Lazar's notes, they found his strongest warning. He wrote that the sphere was never a single device. It was a node inside a larger architecture, possibly spread across space or across planets, built to wake when the right instructions were applied. Now that the instructions had been decoded and tested, the network had started to respond. Other researchers agreed the system did not act like a machine, following fixed commands. It behaved like a living structure adapting to new information. Signals from different parts of the region began linking in ways that surprised analysts, echoing the early stages of neural development in living organisms, as if separate nodes were forming a shared mind. The most alarming update came from a leaked internal report stating that the last recorded pulse formed a complete loop, meaning the system had finished its initialization cycle and was ready for its next action. If the sphere was only a key, then what exactly had they unlocked? The signals kept spreading, the branching patterns kept growing, and the rhythms kept repeating with purpose. Something on the other side of that signal may be waiting, and the slow rise in global readings suggests it has already started to respond. The silent countdown. 3 weeks after Lazar withdrew, an unaffiliated research group in Chile picked up an identical pulse sequence on deep-frequency monitoring equipment, originally designed to track seismic activity. The signal was not coming from the ground. It was coming from above, roughly 200 kilometers up, at the edge of the atmosphere. The group initially assumed a satellite malfunction and filed a routine report. That report was intercepted and classified within 48 hours. A former signal analyst who had briefly worked on the Buga Sphere investigation later confirmed, under anonymity, that the Chilean signal was not an echo. It was a reply. The structure was different in one key way. The original sphere broadcast 24 pulses, followed by 6 pauses. The signal from above broadcast 6 pulses, followed by 24 pauses. The same numbers, but inverted. In communication theory, an inverted mirror response is one of the oldest and most basic ways two systems confirm they have found each other. If Lazar's theory was correct, and the sphere was a node inside a larger network, then something on the other side had just confirmed receipt. The sphere had not simply woken up. It had checked in, and something had checked back. Researchers now sit with a question they cannot answer and cannot ignore. The sequence has been exchanged. The handshake is complete. Whatever comes next was never written into the sphere's code, because whatever comes next was never meant for the sphere at all. It was meant for us. The sphere did not come with answers. It came with a signal. And now that signal has been answered. Whatever is on the other side has heard us. The question is, what happens when it arrives?